Hey everyone, welcome back. It's me, Only Run Very Noob. I'm going to do something a little different today. Just got back from Vegas, where the U.S. Nationals was being held. I didn't qualify for Nationals this year. I played the calling and like the PTI event. So I'm just going to kind of talk about the tournament and how that went. First off, I'd like to thank everybody who came up to say hi. It meant a lot to me. Your guys' encouragement really helps me make these videos. It helps me uh, just wake up and make a video every day and be happy about it. So I really appreciate all you guys. It was great to meet you all and talking between rounds about our games and how things were going. Just kind of talk about the hero we all love. So Friday was the PTI. I'm not going to go too much into the PTI. It was kind of like a warm up for the calling. Not too important. Um, well, to everybody but one person who gets to win it, because the prizes for that tournament are very top heavy. Like even second place doesn't really make cash or anything. They just kind of get prize wall tickets. We went 6-2. Round one, I actually had to play against a local. A local I play a lot. We meet each other in the finals at our armories all the time. He's a very, very good Fi player. He actually has a YouTube channel as well. If you're interested in Fi, it's Looping Fiasco. Um, yeah, he does kind of the same content as me, game analysis, just for a different hero. The Fi matchup, I think, is kind of 50-50. Maybe it's like a loaded coin flip for Fi. And he ended up winning the game at one life. So one of our losses was to Fi. Round two. I forget. Well, I'll just say what I lost to. So I lost to Fi and I lost to Aura Prism. Um, yeah, Aura Prism. I don't think it's that bad of a matchup. Maybe it's really bad. Again, I don't really play it a lot. We didn't really, we drew Zealous Beltings with 3 red hands, so it wasn't that good. But we ended the day at 6-2, so not awful. A good little test for endurance, an 8-round day, which is what the calling is going to be. So for the calling, round one, I play against Azuri. Game does not go well for me. A lot of times we got tempo, we couldn't really do anything with it. We had multiple 4-card hands, maybe 2 4-card hands that literally hammered for 6 and didn't even get to make a surge. Yeah, the dreaded 4-card hand, or the 4 red hand. I believe one of them I even hammered for 4 because my hand was like Fate Foreseen, Crippling Crush, Zealous Belting, Zealous Belting. It was just like quite awful. We ended up losing this game with like 10 seconds on the clock. Not a good way to start your tournament. You can't win them all, but 0-1 is definitely going to be bad for our tiebreakers. Round two, I played the mirror match against Bravo. Um, I honestly think I should have lost this game too. It was not going well for me basically the whole game. The Bravo mirror can be a little high rolly on first cycle if they're just like resolving rouses and drawing Zealous Beltings and you're blocking with your Zealous Beltings. It's not going well. Uh, he had a turn where he like Zealous Belting into a Starstruck. I mean, it was just not going well for us. But there was a critical point in the game where I believe we stole it. We're at 14 and he's at like 21 and we hammer him for 6 and he just takes 6. So he comes down to 15 or so. Yeah, 21 minus 6 is 15. And the only thing he does to us on his turn is dominate a chokeslam. So definitely, I would say it's not worth taking 6 there to just send 8 that might do nothing. But the hand we're looking at is 4 blues. One of them's Terra Sunder. Our Terra Sunder will be for 7. And in Arsenal we have a red pummel. So I'm thinking kind of long about it. I don't really have any armor left. I have a Tectonic Plating with no counter, and all my other armor's used up. Because he had like Command and Conquer pummeled us, and so we had to use our crown. So I'm thinking, And if he took 6 and only used 3 cards on offense, that must almost like 100% of the time mean that the last card is a defense reaction. So we could block 3 and just like tear asunder and kind of like get a card in a defense reaction, but I don't think that's going to be good enough. So we end up just taking 8, going down to 6 with the plan of pummeling our tear asundered hammer. Of course, Chokeslam says attack action cards, so it's sort of like one of the perfect counters for his play. So we go down to 6, we tear asunder. We make a surge, tear asunder, attack with 2 floating and 1 in arsenal, and he just blocks 3 like immediately. So I'm pretty happy. I believe that the arsenal defense reaction is like a Fate Foreseen or a Sink Below, because if it was a staunch response, I think he would probably like think about just using the staunch response. So he blocks 3, and then we pass reactions. He uses Fate Foreseen. We pummel. He goes down to 1 card and takes 4 down to 11. And we just kind of have to hope to get there with our hand. We draw up 2 blues, Zealous Belting, Crippling Crush. Almost the perfect combination. And he just hammers for 4 with his last card in hand. We block with our Tectonic Plating, taking 2 down to 4, and then we Zealous Belting into hammer on our turn, making a surge and arsenaling the Crippling Crush. I believe he takes 3 damage here, down to 8. Having 1 card left because he blocks. No, he takes 2 damage because he blocks 3 on the Zealous Belting and then 6 on the hammer, I believe. Maybe one of them was a 2 block, and that's why I said he'd go down to 3, down to 8. Not 100% sure. And he just arsenals a card. On our turn, we get to dominate a Crippling Crush, and it lands. But he has 1 armor left, so he lives at 1 life. But he has like no hand, right? He has 1 card in hand, 1 card in arsenal. And from there, we just sort of take the game. It's 4-1. We have 1 armor. They have 0 armor. I believe it was in their arsenal was like a red pommel, which really... Oh, never mind. It doesn't surprise me. I was thinking, like, why didn't he pummel the Chokeslam? But, of course, he had the Fate Foreseen there. So we kind of get away with 1 there. I believe he could have just outvalued us, and, like, instead of dominating a Chokeslam, he could have just, like, blocked with 3 and hammered for 6 and been into, like, a lot better spot. Round 3, we play against Dawnblade Dory. I was actually very impressed with this Dawnblade Dory's play. He was very good, very methodical, very, he knew his plan. He fat stacked, of course, with, like, tunics and shunts. We see a yellow shunt early, so we know that he's on at least 7 shunts, because I think 3 blue and 3 red are probably in before the yellows. So we know we're kind of in for a long, tough match, but I have a lot of experience playing against Dory. I sort of know that we just outvalue, like, our hammer just outvalues them eventually. We get to a point in the game where we're at like 18 and they're at 13, and they just send a Dawnblade for 3, so we take it. They don't do any shenanigans, and we get to dominate a Crippling with them having an arsenal card, but they've already used like a lot of reactions. They have some left, of course, because they play a ton, but he also has a huge deck, so it's like maybe he can't find them all so fast. He ends up blocking the Crippling with like armor and a card, but it doesn't crush, or it doesn't stop the crush effect. So we know for a fact his arsenal's not reaction, right? Or he would have used it on the Crippling Crush. So we get the Crippling Crush, get the crush effect. I think it hit for like 5. Draw up. We get to dominate. Now we get to dominate a Spinal, and he'd already used his armor to kind of just try to mitigate damage on the Crippling Crush. So the armor he used there, he doesn't have any armor left to use on the Spinal. So the Spinal hits him for like 6, putting him down to I don't know. Oh, you know what? He must have been at 11 after the crippling crush hit, or he would just be dead here. But I think he goes from 11 to 5. Draw up 3 blues, Starstruck. Okay, good. We get to just steal the game from flipping the tempo and kind of high rolling him first cycle there. But a very good player. I was definitely impressed with his decision making. Round number 4, we play against another Uzuri. Ugh, our only loss of the day, and we have to see Uzuri again. Not feeling good, feeling a little intimidated because I didn't want to lose to Uzuri again. But our deck didn't allow us to lose here. This was a non-game. We could have probably won at 30 life, but we won at like 23 because we just wanted to, instead of like play the value game for a few more turns, just like win the game that turn. He wins the die roll, and he chooses for us to go first, which I don't. If I won the die roll, I would have chose to go first because I like to get some dominate damage in. I like to maybe tuck and react an Arsenal or play an Aura. So he puts us first, and we look at our opening hand, and it's 2 blues, Imposing Visage, and Command and Conquer. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. About a week before the tournament, my 40th blue was 1 blue Crush Confidence, but I had taken it out to just put in Stamp Authority. I just thought maybe it had a little bit more upside. Yeah, it doesn't turn on Rouse, but it does some other stuff. And it shined here because we get to Imposing Visage for Stamp Authority and Arsenal Command and Conquer and draw a 5-card hand. The 5-card hand we draw is 3 blues, Crippling Crush, and Fate Foreseen. Our opponent does E-Strike, Go Again, and we just block it with the Fate Foreseen. Because of Stamp Authority, we don't care about on-hits this turn, right? So we're just going to try to get like the maximum damage in case he just plays like a 3 stealth and Arsenal's his 4th card. So we take 1, and then he plays a stealth attack and swaps in a surgical. Hits me for 4. It doesn't do anything. I think he might have forgot Stamp Authority doesn't have on hits because when Stamp Authority hit me, he was like, banish a card from your hand, and I just like point to my Stamp Authority like, no, that's not what happens. So he has a 4-card hand that he fully uses to only deal 5 damage, and we get to dominate a Crippling Crush at him with no Arsenal. I mean, this is just the dream, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of how the game went. We dominated Crippling. You know, he blocks 3, takes 8, has a 1-card hand. I forget if he Arsenals it or does something like Puny, but either way, we have like first cycle pitch stack. You know, we're resolving Rouse the Ancients. We're dominating Starstruck. So we're like Zealous Belting. We're going off. So not a very interesting game, but certainly one that made me more confident about the matchup moving forward. Round 5, we play against Alexi. Game isn't really that close. Our opponent's 3-of-a-kinds never lined up with Rain Razors, and one of our opponent's 3-of-a-kinds was like super bad. He plays 3-of-a-kind and instantly just like slumps in his chair, you know, head in hand, looks at it, and he's, you know, you could just tell like immediately, like, you don't have to be an investigator to be able to read this body language. It's very clear he doesn't like the cards he drew. It wasn't as bad as it could be, you know. It had an arrow in it. In fact, it had 3 arrows in it that were all red and all cost 1. So he like pitches a Withering Shot, red Withering Shot, to load a red Withering Shot +1, and then pitches like a Remorseless to Withering Shot us for 6. All in all, not a huge deal. Probably one of the weaker 3-of-a-kind hands I've ever seen. His first 3-of-a-kind was actually not that strong either. It was certainly a little stronger than that, but it wasn't that strong. And by the time his third 3-of-a-kind got played, even though it was kind of a reasonable 3-of-a-kind turn, we were so far ahead that it just didn't matter. Round 6. Round 6 was against another Lexi. This opponent was really fun. Yeah, you could just tell he kind of loved the game. He's smiling and like, you know, laughing at stuff that's happening in game. Just a very, you know, I like playing against all my opponents, but he was an especially jovial opponent. This game didn't go so well for us, though. I made a pretty critical error in the end. It was kind of a Lexi back and forth uh, matchup where I think we were like slightly behind the whole time, and the error I made at the end of the game was probably not great because we were so far behind. We just couldn't be making mistakes like this. But he had blocked with his New Horizons earlier. Interestingly enough, we sent a Chokeslam undominated, and he blocks with 2 cards from hand for. Yeah, I think he blocks with 2 cards from hand, his hat, and he had 2 arsenals, so he only had 2 cards left in his hand, and both arsenals got destroyed from blocking the hat. Not sure how much better his cards in hand were than the cards in his arsenal. He ended up having blue and 3 of a kind in hand or something, and he had a face-up premeditate in arsenal, I believe, and a face-down something. I actually don't remember. I didn't look when he destroyed them. Maybe he just wanted a 3 of a kind and pressure life total. But he had no. Either way, he had no hat, and at one point he's at 7 life, and he plays like Endless Arrow Go Again. And he has Rain Razors, I believe, face-up in arsenal. No. No, I think he just has endless arrow +1 for 5. And I end up blocking it for 5 or 6, and I think I should have just let it hit. Because without hat, he can't really arsenal the endless arrow at the end of his turn. He has to just kind of sandbag it. And if I wouldn't have blocked it fully, I would have been able to hammer for 4 with my opponent at 7. So I think that was kind of a big error. But either way, we lost this game. I feel like it was pretty close, though. Round 7, I play against another Uzuri. When this Uzuri presented his deck to me, I swear to God, his deck looked like it had 120 cards in it. I mean, this thing was like fat stacking. Maybe it was just like double, triple sleeved. He must have presented like 74 cards. So I know this is going to go long. This is a Fatigue Uzuri. I think we're good against Fatigue Uzuri, but it's just it's just like I know that it's going to be a long one. And we actually do counter fatigue him. Hammer is very efficient, way more efficient than daggers. He doesn't get any turns that are like a lot of damage. His looking for his scraps were quite bad. Like it was never like looking for a scrap into like disruption. It was always just like dagger looking for a scrap. And it lined up really bad for him because every time he did that, we were in a position we could just take 7 and do something with our 4-card hand that was good, like a Rouse the Ancients or a dominated 7-drop or something. So yeah, there was a point where he knew he was going to get fatigued before me. I asked for a deck count, and he had like 14 cards, and we had like 21. So we didn't actually fatigue him. We killed him with damage, but it was because of the threat of fatigue that he just... There was one turn where he went from like 11 to 5 from Hammer. He just took 6 because he knew he just had to make something happen. He goes from 11 to 5. We like hammer for 6 at one point. He only blocks 3, goes to 2, and then eventually we like dominate a blue Thunderquake for the win. This game went really long. It went like 10 minutes after the timer because we got deck checked. So we had like a 13-minute extension, and it was a matchup that was probably going to go very close to time anyway. So, we kind of had a big crowd. It was a little fun, but very boring game. Round 8. We played against a mid-range Dash. I think opinions on this matchup are very polarized. I think really good Bravos think they're favored. I definitely think I'm favored. I think Dashes think they're favored. It might be closer than either of us think. But I just drew the heat. I mean, I was going again. I was like pummeling dominated attacks. He only got to play one item out. Because he was just getting clobbered, like absolutely high rolled. So kind of another non-game, sort of lucky for us. If you were doing the tallying, after 8 rounds, that puts us at 6-2. We are into day 2, barely, which is, you know, it's good. It kind of sucks that if we want to top 8, we got to go 5-0 on day 2. But we can go 4-1 in cash and, you know, just run up the elo. So day 2, round 9, I play against Dromai, and I'm pretty stoked when I see him flip over Mage Master's boots, because that means he's Big Dragon Dromai. Oh, this game was very frustrating. I think Bravo's a heavy favorite against Big Dragons, but we just hit, you know, like if it's 80-20, we just hit the 20. Every time we had Rouse the Ancients, we drew 2 reds. I took a Rouse the Ancients in Arsenal, and for like 4 or 5 turns, my hands can't turn it on. There was a critical point. We were pretty far ahead, but there was a critical point where he Lost in Thought, Chromai, and had a Time Snap potion. And we have 3 poppers. So he Lost in Thought's away one of our poppers. We have 2 poppers and a blue Rouse the Ancients. He Chromais, and we pop it. And he's got it kind of like a board. I believe we're at like 23. He has 2 Yenderais, a Kyloria, 2 Ashwings, and a Necria. So what is that? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 16. And his Ghostly Touch has 12 counters. And he has 1 card in hand. So we got to figure out what we want to pop. Because he popped his Time Snap potion, so if we pop, you know, we can't just pop the first dragon to end his turn. We have to pop a dragon just to, like, prevent damage here. So, of course, we're not going to pop the Ashwings or the Yenderai. We're going to pop the Kyloria, or we're going to try to pop the gloves. We don't have enough armor to cover up Kyloria's damage, so Kyloria, if we decide not to pop it, is going to hit us and draw a card. Unless we wanted to block 2 with equipment, because I had a Tectonic Plating without a counter and a Crater Fist with a counter. We could have blocked with Rouse and Tectonic Plating to stop Kyloria, saving the red popper, which he knew our hand. So I take all the damage up to the Kyloria, which is the last one he attacks with. And I think, and I'm just like, what blue could he have? So, like, what blue? If he has a blue, it would have to not be Passing Mirage for me to not want to block the Kyloria. Because if I block the Kyloria with Rouse and Tectonic Plating, only leaving a red, instead of activating gloves, he just plays the Passing Mirage, so we can't really let that happen at this point. It could be a non-blue, in which case we want to pop the Kyloria and he just has to Arsenal pass. Or it could be a non-Passing Mirage blue, in which case we want to save it for the gloves. And I think, and I end up popping the Kyloria, and he has the Passing Mirage. But instead of playing it, he activates his gloves, because we know we don't have a popper. Removing a counter for it and attacking for 11. We have to just block with Tech Plating for 2, taking 9 down to like 4. And I think this turn was the turn he won the game. It was very close. Our opponent was at 2 at the end of the game, and we didn't get to resolve or Rouse the Ancients, and we didn't get to pummel anything except for the hammer. So I think we just got a little unlucky, but we didn't play perfectly, of course, because there was one turn earlier, not one turn earlier, but like a turn earlier in the game, where I hammered for 4, and the Kyloria was on the board, and I decided to just hammer face, because that's just kind of my plan, is like, even leaking 1 damage and getting a card out of his hand feels good, but in hindsight, I think if you hammer for 4, you should really think about maybe hitting a dragon if they have like a Time Snap potion on board. So that's kind of a tough loss, because that's a matchup I wanted to see. I was really happy when he flipped over Dromai, and I was even happier when he flipped over Mage Master Boots. Very good player. He played it incredibly well. It was a very tight game. And yeah, so we take a loss. We're kind of, we're knocked out of top 8 contention. 1x3 will make top 8, but not one that lost round 1. But we just keep going. We could win 4 in a row to make cash. We could win 3 more and go ELO positive. And what else are we going to do? Our flight wasn't until Monday morning, so we're just going to play it out. Play against good competition that we don't normally get to see, on a weekly basis. So next round I play against Alexi. This game, I thought I was going to lose too. I made a lot of errors in this game. I was kind of playing sloppy. In my mind, I was like, oh, I can't make top 8. I was chatting with my opponent. He was a really friendly guy. We were just kind of like having fun playing cards, right? Because both of us were knocked out of top 8 contention. There was one really bad error where I have a surge. My hand is 3 blues and a red choke slam, and my arsenal is a red choke slam. And I go, oh, cool. I'm going to block with the red choke slam in hand, and I'm going to tear asunder my choke slam. And this is going to be great. I'm going to tear asunder choke slam. This is going to be great. I can tear asunder my choke slam. This is going to be great. I think on his first arrow, if I'm going to block this one or try to block the next one, and I eventually do block it, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to tear asunder choke slam. So what do? I block with a blue. So dumb. I almost immediately look at my hand and I look at my arsenal and I go, oh, I can't tear asunder choke slam now. But I have crown up, so I could crown away my arsenal and maybe draw a blue and still do what I want to do. So I end up doing that. Don't draw blue, but I do draw a yellow. And we all know the only yellow in the deck is Starstruck, and I have a surge, so I can just pitch the 2 blues and Starstruck and just move on. And that red chokeslam in our arsenal actually ended up winning us the game because there was a turn where our opponent blocked our red chokeslam with a card from hand and the New Horizons, like way earlier in the game than I think you should. But he really wanted to stop the chokeslam effect because I think he had like premeditate Lace with Frailty in hand. I think he just got a little greedy. I think in that spot you're definitely supposed to block with one of the premeditate or the Lace and an arrow and just keep your hat. Because as soon as he blocked with hat, I just turned to like a fatigue plan and I eventually got there to fatigue him at 2 life. There was one turn that he attacked me for 3. And I hadn't been tracking his pitch, but I'd kind of been paying attention to what he pitched, and I just think about it, and I'm like, I don't want to get lightning pressed here. I'm just going to block your arrow for 3, for 6. And I block for 6, and he almost immediately says, like, good block. He has to pitch the lightning press to load the next arrow and shoot me for 3. I think it was like a blue searing shot. So I get to just block 3 and then hammer for 4, and then win the game from that point. Great opponent, really fun game. Not a game I thought I was going to win. After I won it, I kind of like walked to the bathroom and shook off. I was like, okay, we're still in this for cash. You made a lot of mistakes that were costly in that game, but, we're still up in this. Next round, I play against Azalea. Oh, baby, this is a good matchup for me, right? If the game's not going great for me, it's still like a good matchup. It's definitely losable. It's closer than you'd think, but it's a good matchup. We win the die roll. We go first. And we play an Imposing Visage for a showtime, looking for a Crippling Crush. We Arsenal Crippling Crush. And our opponent has no arrows. So the best he can do is like play Premeditate and E-Strike for 7. On hit, make a Ponder. We just take 7, dominate Crippling. Next hand, we can dominate Crippling again. We can dominate Crippling again. He attacks with like a fatigue shot. We just give him 5 armor and dominate Crippling again. The first dominated Crippling, he just took 11, by the way, so he went to 29. And the second dominated Crippling, he also took 11. So he goes down to like 18 with us still at 40. And from that point, I can just kind of win the game how I want. I take some damage. I just trade damage until I kill him. Cool opponent. I've seen him around. I think he's not local to me, but I think he's like semi-local. Maybe he's like SoCal. Not 100% sure, but I know I've seen him around. Um, that was 3 rounds. Okay, the 4th round on day 2, I have to play against Isaac Crute on Lexi. I don't see a big attack until like turn 8 or 9. I'm full blocking out until I see a big attack, and the first time I actually see a big attack, I'm at like 22 life. The game didn't go that well. I ended up losing that one. It wasn't particularly close. At one point, to dominate a crippling, I took like 10 damage, and maybe that was a mistake, but I felt like I had to do something because there was no way I was going to fatigue him. He was actually on the, not Rustling Leaves, but the Remembrance Quiver, Abyssal Depths, and he presented 67 cards. I only presented 60 because I'm on the lean, mean beatdown game plan against Lexi these days, and, you know, he just got there quite easily. Our final round is against a semi-local, not like Armory local, but definitely like ProQuest local that I've played a lot. He's a friend of mine. He's on Katsu. We're not super happy we have to play each other, but what are you going to do? You just have to play the game. And I high rolled him. It felt kind of bad. It was absolutely brutal. He won the die roll and chose to go second, which I believe is correct. And my opening hand on the play is 3 blues and Starstruck. So I get to do 7 damage and make him skip his turn, basically. He just ticks up Tunic and passes. We look at our hand. 3 blues, Crippling Crush. So we dominated Crippling Crush. And at this point, the game is very out of reach for him, I think, if I play reasonably at all. There's a turn that I just kind of let him destroy me as much as he did. Like, he like triggered Mugenshi. He like, you know, like, he like bonds for whelming, crack boots, whelming into Mugenshi. Like, he just got to do it all to me, and I still won at like 16 life because yeah, I think I dominated another Starstruck at some point in that game. I don't know if it was directly after the Crippling Crush, but it was shortly thereafter. And, you know, I got to let him do like 24 damage to me, and I still got to win that game. It was just not close. So that was my tournament. We ended up 9-4. We got 35th place, bubbling the cash line of top 32, which is a little unfortunate, but losing round 1 will do that. Overall, I had a lot of fun playing. I always do. It's a very fun game. I love these big events. You get to play against a lot of new people. You get to test your mettle. You know, you get to just go in there and game it up and meet new people and just have a good time. Vegas has good food, so it's like, it was a wonderful trip. If you're still with me, thanks for watching my long video. Comment, like, and subscribe down below. Tell me how your tournament went, maybe what your end record was, maybe your wins and losses. I really appreciate all the comments. So, thanks, and hopefully I'll have another gameplay video tomorrow. I gotta get to jamming some Talishar games. We never stop playing, boys. Alright, bye.